Hello friends, welcome to JavaEE EJB JPA tutorial. Now you are watching part 5 of the subseries JPA relation one to many and many to one. Here we are going to do the form processing. In the previous video we created a JSP form, and using that JSP form user can create a new employee, and while creating the employee they can map to the existing job. So we already loaded the job into the choice control, and the JSP was already done, and once user fills the form field for employee and picks a job, they can do the submit, and submit action will takes place in the servlet that we will create here in this video. Let's quickly review the previous parts. These are all the prerequisites. Now we are at subseries 8. First we talked about the existing DB tables. These DB tables ships with PUBs database. Then we created entities for those two tables. We also talked about the relation and how the Eclipse shows the one to many and many to one join types. Then we talked about the bean implementation. In the bean implementation, we are creating two methods. One is add employee and another one is query jobs. This is the bean implementation. After that, in the previous video, we created a JSP file that presents the dynamic HTML form to the user so that they can create a new employee and map to a existing job. Here in the servlet, first we will use the annotation at EJP. Then bean name, we are giving it as emp job bean. So when we are creating the bean, this is the mapped name we gave. Then here we are referencing the remote interface and we are naming it as a bean EJ. So in the previous video, we accessed this same bean object EJB job, emp job bean remote, and we referenced this remote using the initial context lookup method. So that's what we did in the JSP. Why? Because we need to retrieve the list of jobs. For that we contacted this enterprise Java bean and we asked it to give all the job entity. Now here we are in the form processing servlet. Here EJB bean object is ready. Next we are using the do post method. This is the override. When we are creating the servlet, we will use this. So first, if you see, we are getting the submit get parameter, and when it is valid, that means this is just a check to make sure user clicked the submit button. Then from a request, we are using the get parameter. So HTML form field data we are accessing first name, middle name, last name, job level, and we are storing that in the corresponding string variables. After that, this job level, since it is in string form, we are creating a new integer, and we are keeping that as an integer level. Then job, if you see, we are making use of a get parameter, and if you remember, this job is actually a select and choice, and for each choice we are setting the attribute as job ID. So the moment you query here the get parameter, it will retrieve the job ID, but what user will see is the job description and the experience demand, minimum and maximum experience demand, right? But when user picks a specific item and when they submit it, job ID goes here. Why? Because in the select attribute, I mean in the choice attribute, we specify the job ID as the value. So that's what here get retrieved. You can look at our previous JSP dynamic scriptlet that assigns the job ID. Job ID we will read from the entity itself, and we dynamically form that combo box control. All right, now we have str job ID. Once again, we are creating the integer object out of this string, and we are holding the reference. So these are all the boxed integer values. We can unwrap it when we need a primitive integer type. Next, this is bean EJ, right? From bean EJ, we are making call to add employee method. So the add employee method requires first name, middle name, last name, job level, and job ID. Remember, our goal here is adding an employee. In the JSP, we actually queried the job because we need to populate the combo box with all the jobs. Here, our goal is to add a new employee to the system. So when we are adding the new employee, we are giving the first name, middle name, last name, all this parameter which we read from here. Finally, we are giving the job ID also. That means we are creating a new employee. After that, we are mapping that employee to the existing job. So after making this bean call, we are giving a message stating employee added, and this is returning an emp, right? Newly created employee, emp.getID we are using. So in the add employee, if you remember, we are doing a technique of replacing the ID. Using the random number, we will replace the ID, and then we will add the employee. So that's the ID what you will get here. And then we are doing the response.getWriter.println, and we are writing this response string. So in the browser, you will be getting employee added ID, and whatever ID is generated for this new employee, that will get displayed. So that's all here on the servlet side. And so this is one part. If you see here, we have a new employee created on the fly from form. Then we are mapping it to the existing job ID. Job ID already exists, so we are mapping this is new, this is old. That means the already existing job. So when we are creating the employee itself, we are mapping it to the existing job ID. Next, we will in the next coming videos, we will create a job. Then we will check whether job is visible in the combo box. So that's how we will continue with the next coming videos. Finally, we will do the update as well. Alright, here we are creating the new employee and mapping it to the existing job. That's all here. Now we will go to the demo. So in the previous video, we created JSP file, right? That means we should go to web content, create employee JSP. So this is the servlet we need to create. Now we will expand this source. We already have a package for servlets, tube coding examples.servlets. tube.codingexamples.servlet, that's the package name. Here we will create the new servlet. Class name we are giving it as a create employee servlet. Then here I am clicking next. We will override only the do post. We will click finish. So this is the boilerplate code. First thing what we will do, create employee servlet extends from HTTP servlet. We have separate playlist for servlet. If you want to learn, you can watch that. Here we are adding the EJB annotation from javax.ejb package. Then we are creating the remote interface reference from tube.codingexamples.ejb.statelessbean. So that's the package. In that package we defined our remote bean. So inside the do post, code was already explained in the PowerPoint slide. So here if you say get parameter submit, when submit is valid, we are retrieving all the parameters from the JSP form. JSP form is the one which is submitting the data to this employee servlet, right? When user clicks submit, action takes place on this servlet, and in this servlet we are doing the get parameter and reading the form field data. So this employee we need to import from tube coding examples JPA entity. So this is from the entity project. From here we are importing it. That's all the implementation. And add employee, if you see, if you want to quickly review it, so I'm clicking control, and when I place it here, open declaration, open implementation, so it goes to the bean implementation. And if you see job ID, we are giving it, right? So here we are creating employee, and the form field data we are filling it to the entity. After that the ID we are forming it on the fly using the random number generation. Then so this was already explained in the previous video. Just quickly explaining it once again. Then we are creating the job. So here if you see job, we are making use of the entity manager find. Job ID is coming here, and we are finding the job. After that we are setting that to the employee entity. That's all we are doing. So link and all, we are not doing anything. When we make a call to em.persist, the persist method will store the data for employee as well as it will update the link portion of the DB table. All right, now we will close this, and we will okay, forget about this error. This is from create new account, which we need to revisit, and we can skip for now. We will concentrate on create employee JSP. First we will start the server. Here you can see started. Then we will add our project, add and remove EJB EAR, click finish. Here you are seeing deployed EJB EAR. So the server is started. Now we are in Chrome. This is our create employee form. First name I am giving it as first name. Middle name I am giving it as M. Last name I am giving it as last name. Job level I am giving it as 120. And job, here I am choosing public relation manager, and the job level 120 is in between this. Now let's do the submit, and you can see employee added, and this is the new ID. And if you go to SQL Server, select star from employee, where emp underscore ID equal to the ID returned to us. So I'm using the same ID. So if I execute, you can see first name M, last name is added, and job ID is 8. That means here we can go for select star from job, and job ID is 8, public relation manager, and you can see how the relation is set by the persistent manager. That's all here in this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.